coaching, first football game of the year. First of all, can you just start us out with state of the program and how you're feeling going into UNLV?
Yeah, I mean, we're feeling good. Feels like we've been in camp since last February. But no, it's good. We've been playing a lot of football. I think our guys are excited to go out and hit somebody else, and I think they're doing a good job kind of approaching the game. Finding what tidbits of film and personnel that we can get, and preparing for the game in Vegas.
Cody, you talked about feeling like you've been in camp since February. How much has that changed the game? The fact that you now have these long summer workout periods, you do spring football. How has that changed over the years?
Yeah, I think it is unique just because you look at even today in practice, and look at whether it's looking at the injury report or gauging guys' bodies. I mean, you just do so much football that you wonder, all right, well, how do we have to continue to modify how we practice so guys don't get dinged up because you're just doing so much of it, and the development level of teams and programs is just so much higher than it was when I was playing. So as the game continues to evolve, I think the scheduling and the infrastructure has to evolve, and I know it's always a little disjointed at times, but for us, I think the development is good because when you're coaching, you want to coach. I think sometimes doing all the other stuff besides coaching is not as fun, but being able to be out on the field with the guys is something great. But even for us, your summer schedule you'd change to you'd have another week off in there, but since we found out we were going week 0, we didn't get that extra week off. So our guys have basically just been here since the 4th of July, going 6 days a week, or 5 days a week during the summer period, and then 6 days during camp. But it's I think there's good and bad of everything. Change is inherently difficult to adjust to, and we have to continue to talk to other staffs and teams about best practices. But I'd rather have more football than less. But I always think it's important to be able to find time for those guys to recoup and rest to make sure that we can take care of their souls and their bodies as we go through that. And I think we're still working on perfecting that science.
Cody, you're not exactly a grizzled veteran head coach, but you've been through 2 opening games already as a head coach.
Yeah.
Is the magic still there for a first game of the season?
I think it's always interesting just because you're excited to go see that group of guys play. You can't simulate it in practice as much as you want to try to go in scrimmages. Different guys show up when the pressure's on, and that's always fun to see. I thought it was really fun a couple of years ago down at San Diego State just to see the guys open up and play, and then to see the guys compete against Oregon State last year. This year will be a great opportunity to go, but normally as we go into it, we kind of have the element of surprise, and this is the first time where we've had to go into it with no tape. And I'm a guy that loves to grind tape, so it's always frustrating when you don't have as much stuff to go off of, because it's not just hey, I want to score a touchdown and play well. Some of it you end up getting a safety component of, hey, how do I make sure my quarterback's going to be protected from a standpoint there, because there are a lot of exotic pressures that you're going to see on NFL tape that I'm sure he could bust out. Well, we can't prepare for all of every single third down blitz that Mike Zimmer's run in the last 20 years because Mike Zimmer's Paul Guenther's guy. You can't. Do you want to look at stuff that he was running in 21? I think it's just to me, it used to be, hey, all I got to worry about is go out and play because we have tape on those guys. This year, they're more unknowns because of the amount of new guys that we have, the new staff that we have, and the unknowns from the opponent we're going to play. So there are a little bit more nerves there from a preparation standpoint. But the excitement of seeing these guys play, that's always going to be there, just because there's nothing like a fall Saturday.
That was my follow-up question, Cody. Dan is new at Vegas. He's basically got a brand new staff. What he did at Mississippi State and Florida does not necessarily apply here in the desert. How do you prepare? I mean, what can you go by?
I think you're always kind of look at the program things that he's done, because when he had, quarterbacks that were passers at Florida and quarterbacks that were runners at Mississippi State, he was able to do different dynamic things. And I think you always have to try to keep it vanilla, but prepare for a little bit of everything and be ready to tweak the car as you're going once game day starts. Because just based on their roster that they're going to be, probably, I would guess, a spread 11 personnel team. And based on what Mullen has done in the past, the threads of whether he's throwing it or running it is he's going to do a good job with the gap scheme, and he's going to have a good element of quarterback run. And it sounds like, they've recruited to that they have a guy who can be a great passer and a guy who can really run the football at quarterback. So we got to be ready for both of those. And they're long and they're big. And Coach Mullen's teams, regardless of whether they were running inside zone or power, they've always been wanted to get you downhill. So I don't think he's going to turn into like a wide zone aficionado. He's going to want to run downhill. However they do it, we got to figure that out. But he's going to want to run downhill. He's going to want to incorporate the quarterback, and then he's going to do a good job getting in some empty spread sets out of big personnel to try to take shots. So we're trying to prepare for all of those as best as we can, but our guys have to show up and play their responsibilities based on the formation that shows up, and we'll see how we do.
Have you got a preset rotation for your quarterbacks, or are you going to go by feel?
It's a little bit of feel, and I've told Jordan Cook I think he's had an unbelievable week of preparation, but just based on how the game flow goes, we want to change that. We want Jordan to have an opportunity to go out there, compete, and deal with a little bit of adversity and come back from it. But if we're having a lot of success, I mean, I don't want to take the foot off the gas, but I do want to find an opportunity to get those guys in there, just because it's important. You can't simulate live reps, so getting those reps are so valuable, and I want to make sure that as we go through this season that we try to prepare and develop our team as best as possible for the long run.
How would you compare where Jordan is today with where he was 2 years ago at San Diego State?
I mean, light years ahead. I mean, I'd say when he showed up, he was probably like a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 14-year-old playing a bunch of college kids, and now he's a young man. I mean, when he showed up, he was, 6'3", single, 185 pounds, and he weighed 185 pounds, and he couldn't bench or clean over 200, and now he's a guy that's going to hang clean 315, and he can jump through the roof, and he's married, and he's been baptized since he got here. I mean, his whole life outlook has changed since he's come to Pocatello. He's one of those awesome success stories of a guy who came to Idaho, and yeah, everybody comes from California, but he just kind of fell in love with it and fell in love with a girl, which helped us a lot. But I just think having, getting married and going through some adversity and having more opportunities to play. Because when he started his first game for us, he had only ever started 9 football games in his life. I mean, I started 9 football games my sophomore year of high school. So, you think of his development of where he was at, and then now that he's been in this program as long as anybody. I mean, he's been practicing with us since I got here. So I think he's a really good understanding of how we're supposed to do things, and him and I have a really good relationship. And to see his maturation, his toughness, his outlook of what is possible, his outlook of what is expected and what he can do has changed a lot. And it's one of those things that you love to see when you're a coach. Just you always hope that guys see their best and continue to develop and continue to persevere, and he's a success story there. Now, is he going to go be the conference player of the year this year? I think he has the potential to do that, and we're holding him to that standard, but he's got to go out and play and continue to grow, and if he stays on the same trajectory he has been, he'll be a fantastic young man in this community for a long time, and he'll be a great quarterback for the Bengals.
Cody, it's the first game, it's the first step in a long season, but what are you kind of looking for out of your team for a first game? Again, given you said we've been banging heads against each other since February. Mm-hmm. So what are you looking for Saturday?
You want to see guys play hard. You want to see guys handle adversity well. And you want to see guys hit, who can really hit and who can perform when you're going to get hit. I think the physicality of the game is just something that always pops out. And a lot of times you have grizzled veterans that he's practicing like this, but he's going to be fine once the lights come on. Whereas that's the unique thing about this football team is we have so many guys, and a lot of the guys, they were here last year and they were here the year before, but they've never had, their butt held to the fire that you have to make the play here. And that's what is so unique even in recruiting. What you try to look for is there are a lot of guys at these big-time schools that are backups that they might run a good 40, they might jump really high and look good, but they've never had to make the play on third down. And I think that's a big part of the maturation process of any team is who are your playmakers, who are the guys you can count on, and that was what we found out pretty early on. Christian Fredrickson was just a guy in practice. And then you go out the first couple games against San Diego State and Utah State and Northern Iowa, and all of a sudden Freddie just turns into Superman. And it just kind of became something that you could count on. It's like, man, the first guy ain't going to bring him down, and he's going to make the tough catches. And I think there's the potential for a lot of guys on our team to do that, but nobody's had to do it yet. Mike Shulikov has been a wonderful role player since he's been here. Can he be the guy? I think he can, but he's got to go out and do it. And whether it's Zion Nunnally or Jonah Burton or, Ian Duarte, and even the guys up front of having the expectations for Dason Cook that, hey, we're going to run the ball more than we have in the past. Can you do that? We're going to run it into loaded boxes. Why? Because I want to give the ball to number 28, and because I believe in our front 5. But can you do that when those guys are going 100% full speed and they don't have to stay up and they're trying to tackle guys? And Dason's a guy that we know who can run through arm tackles, but the entire components and how the run game fits into live football will be an interesting thing for us to figure out.
Cody, this is Grant Duff's first game for the Bengals as our new defensive coordinator. Now that we've made it through fall camp, how would you say the adoption of his philosophy with the defense is going?
Yeah, I think it's really apparent that those guys are taking, a little bit more pride in what they're doing. I think Coach Duff's he's forcing the issue on them taking ownership, of them making calls, of them having input in what we're doing. I think obviously I say there's complexities to the defense, but the simplicity of having a one-gap defense versus a two-gap defense allows guys to play a little bit faster. But also you put the onus on guys that, all right, hey, a one-gap defense is nice because you're going to have a lot of dudes there, but if you don't make the play, you're screwed. I was explaining to people last year that when you kind of have the 3-3-5, the good thing is you have like three guys accountable for that gap. But the bad thing is none of them are accountable right now. So you're going to have less gashers and more bleeding out. Whereas this year, you have the opportunity to have more big plays in both directions. So our guys are going to be there, but if you don't make the tackle, it's not like you have help on both sides. The benefit of a one gap is I'm going to be here before the offense gets to me, but if I don't make the play, the next guy's further away than they used to be. So they're having a lot of fun. I mean, that's a word you hear a lot, is like, this is fun. Because I think just the pressure rate and the versatility in there, the guys know that they're kind of getting to play new spots. You get to see a guy play with his hand in the dirt. You get to see a guy stand up. You get to see a guy play outside the box and inside the box. They're able to move around a little bit more. So they feel like they're playing. But when you're playing, you got to make sure you're playing well. But I have no doubt they will. I mean, that's the thing about Coach Duff's track record is as strong as anybody in the conference. And that's why it was a great coup for us to get him here. But our guys got to go do it for the first time. And it'll be fun to watch.
You lost guys that made tackles behind the line of scrimmage for you last year. Who's going to have to fill that role this year?
Yeah, I think the two guys that you'll probably notice the most are Makatuakoi and Cam Willis. There are two edge defenders, so our defensive ends. Last year we played with like an end and a Leo, and they played a little bit more inside the tackle, so they weren't really setting the edge a lot. A lot of those came from the outside backers. But Maka and Cam are two guys where Maka's growth is incredible. I mean, he was a guy that 2 years ago you would have thought, oh, he's a miss. And, 6 months ago you would have thought, oh, he's a miss. But and I don't mean miss as a person. He was always a great young man, but just really the strain component. And I think having a guy like Ricky Ali'ifua come into the fold, he recruited Cam and kind of took Maka under his wing and just saying, hey, I'm going to coach you hard, but I'm going to love you and I'm going to believe in you and I'm going to connect with you and I'm going to talk to you. And I mean, Ricky's connection with that defensive line group has really elevated some guys that we kind of thought were just going to be depth guys to guys who might be able to be role players. And I think that's a great showcase of just the power of belief. I mean, Ricky believing in those guys and loving them. So Maka is going to be a guy that we expect to make plays, and he's practiced really well. And he was a guy that when we got him from Utah State, you knew he was long, but he was really light in the pants. But he wasn't as physical as you wanted. And now just kind of that belief component is he's playing more physical. And we look for him to have an impact making tackles. Colin Lewis is a new guy from Snow College he's a dancing bear. He's going to play on the inside. And I don't know how many TFLs he's going to have, but he's going to eat up a lot of double teams. And if they do single him, he'll be slippery and make tackles in the backfield. And then, Cam Willis has as good of a speed rush as anybody that we've seen in the Big Sky over here. So for our tackles to have the opportunity to go against him, it's exciting. I mean, UNLV, all the teams we play this year, they're going to have really good defensive ends that we're going to have to account for in different ways, whether it's sliding protection, chipping, giving help from the tailback. But, nobody's going to be a better one-on-one pass rusher than Cam. There might be some guys as good, but he can go. So we got to do a good job of giving him opportunities. That's on defense, making sure we're efficient on first and second down to get him in passing situations, and for us scoring points on offense so people aren't just leaning on him the whole time.
Talk to me about special teams.
Yeah, special teams. Coach Thiessen has done a great job, bringing in two guys. Having to replace Ross and Gabe is really hard. We have another Gabe, but he'll be the punter, Gabe Russo, coming from Auburn, and he can really bang it. I mean, he's a better pure punter than Ross, but the thing that you loved about Ross is Ross was a Gaelic football player who, when you rush the punter, he didn't care. Like, he's like, hit me. Like, I don't care. He's the stereotypical tough Irishman and just done a lot. And his highs were not as high, but his lows were almost non-existent for Ross. Whereas Gabe has the opportunity, if he continued to refine his consistency, he could be an all-conference punter for us because he'll consistently hit the ceiling in here. He kind of reminds me of the Dan Whelan guy we had when I was at Davis, who punts for the Packers. He has that kind of leg, but he's just got to continue to work on his consistency. And then Trajan Sinatra, the thing I love about Trajan, Gabe was the nicest, sweetest kid in America who he didn't know what running power was. He didn't know what a blitz was. He He just knew how to kick the football. But he was an absolutely angelic young man. Whereas Trajan's a guy who in high school, he was the quarterback. So he's got a little bit, he has less of the pure leg power that Gabe had, but he's just a little bit easier to talk to and kind of understands his role a little bit more. And even though Gabe never missed a kick, Trajan's a guy that if he does miss a kick, he's going to handle adversity well. So it'll be exciting where you might not take hey, we're going to kick the 57-yard field goal to see what happens like you would with Gabe. But he's a guy that you got no problem trotting him out there to bang a game-winning kick just because whether it goes straight or wide, he'll be good on the next one, and it's not going to affect him at all. So it's been cool to get to know those guys. And then you got Mason Lindbergh, who is a kickoff specialist. He can really drive the ball. It's been fun to see him blossom. But having all new specialists is unique for us. And how do their personalities affect our scheme? How do their personalities affect how we attack has been fun for us to figure out and tinker with.
Who's your long snapper?
It's Ryan Carter. So Ryan Carter's a guy, and I'd say this to his face. I mean, Ryan's a better long snapper than Scotty Atkinson was. Scotty was just an elite leader and so consistent. And that was where Scotty had come in, and Scotty had just done it well and had never had a bad snap. So you trusted Scotty. Scotty's snap times may not be as good as Ryan's, but Scotty never missed. You never gave me a reason not to. It's like if we're debating who's a better shooter, and if you're 10 for 10 from the free throw line, why am I going to sub you out and put you in? I don't care if you look good, you're unstoppable. Let's keep going. And so Scotty was able to finish his career perfect, and now it's Ryan's opportunity. Ryan has better op times than Scotty. Probably not quite as good in coverage, just based on the body type, but he's gonna get it back there. Now he's just got to be able to do it consistently. And when there's a big angry dude across from him trying to hit him really hard.
Cody, watching Dan's press conference on Monday and looking at the game notes, he's going to play multiple quarterbacks, just like you were going to be playing in that first game. And one of them, OG, I believe is his name, he's listed at 6'3", 240 pounds. That's a linebacker. What kind of special
That's
problem?
a big linebacker.
Yeah, what kind of special problems does that pose for a defense, somebody that big at the quarterback position?
I mean, every problem you can imagine in football, that they might be bigger than you, they might be faster than you, they might be stronger than you, and those are all issues. But you just got to do a good job. I mean, you got to try when the quarterback's in to do as good of a job as you can, forcing the give. I mean, just saying like, hey, you have to understand when I'm the weak side of the potential run based on the back set here, it's, hey, you can hand it to whoever you want, but you are not running the ball. So sometimes you try and manipulate that with how you play the defensive line. But then they always can just add him in there and say, all right, well, screw the read. We're going to have him block the read, and we're just going to run it with the quarterback. Well, then you have to have a safety that's willing to get in there and make a tackle. Because at the end of the day, football is a numbers game. The defense can always bring one more than you can block. They always can if they choose to do so. And just the same thing on offenses. I can always make one guy make the tackle if I choose to do so. If I choose to block everybody at the point of attack and make it one-on-one with my quarterback or near safety, then so be it. And that's why the Wildcat became so prevalent, because you could basically at any point in the game now say, all right, hey, we're going to go 11 on 11, and we're going to block 10 and go one-on-one with this guy. So that's where the quarterback run has just become a bigger part of this game, and you see more teams playing two guys because they realize the advantages of, all right, well, I don't just want a tailback there. Can I have a quarterback who kind of specializes in this and is good at throwing? He's a capable enough thrower. But, man, we have an opportunity to be more diverse than he would just be in the Wildcat package where he throws a one-on-one fade or runs power to the right. Now it's guys that can throw a variety of play-action concepts and run everything that you would want to do in the heavy run game as well.